Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Next, we go to the Vipassanā meditation on the impermanence. We have been learning about this concept of impermanence for weeks. If we introduce that to our new friends, impermanence means whatever the conditioned are having the change, it has these three features. It has an arising, it has an vanishing, and it has an changing. This is what we are going to discover in ourselves. Mainly, we are going to understand the impermanence of our senses. There is a way that we reflect about our senses in order to understand this impermanence. I will guide you first to the meditation. You can follow me when I'm guiding you in a way that I guide you to think. So you can think according to that. Our meaning here is that we are going to understand the impermanence of our senses and our sensory world and whatever we experience. This is a very good practice to manage our feelings. There can be challenging points to understand even during the meditation, but that's okay. You don't need to have complete understanding about this. We are just trying to see the true nature according to the Buddhism. Now the Buddha said, when you try to understand impermanence, you need to see these features, the arising, vanishing, and change in deep within. So we are going to meditate on that. And when you come up with any questions, just for now, leave behind. We will go and analyze about that after this talk, after the meditation in the talk. So please sit down comfortably. We are going to do a Vipassanā meditation. Vipassanā means seeing the root causes. Vipassanā, seeing the root causes. More clearly, we can say it is insight to your life, to our lives, so that we can manage our feelings more easily. So let's go and please close your eyes. When I'm guiding you, try to think to yourself this way. Now, in your head, you can imagine about these eyes. Now, our eye is a sense that we see the sights. This eye has an arising, has an vanishing. Meantime, this eye undergoes change. With the birth, we got this eye, and we leave this eye behind. And with the aging, this eye constantly changes. The eye is impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Eye is subject to change. Eye is impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Through the eyes, we see the sights. We see people, we see trees, buildings, vehicles, whatever that we see through the eyes, those sights too constantly change. It has an arising, it has an vanishing, and meantime it changes. Sights are impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Now, when we see the sights through the eye, the awareness arises dependent on that too. When we open the eyes, we see the sights in the world. By being aware about them. So the awareness of the eye is subject to change. It has an arising, it has an vanishing, and it has a change. That awareness of the eye is eye consciousness. That is impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Why is that? Because the eye is impermanent, sights are impermanent. How come eye consciousness is permanent? Impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. When these three things come together, the unity of these three things is called the eye contact. Eye contact has an eye, a sight, and awareness over it. Eye contact too, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Why is that? Because the eye is impermanent, sights are impermanent, awareness is impermanent. Depending on the eye contact, we experience as the feelings. When we see a beautiful sight, we feel happy. When we see an unpleasant thing, we feel sad. And sometimes we feel neutral. All the feelings are impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Why is that? Because the eye contact is impermanent. So the feelings are impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Feelings has an arising, feelings has an vanishing, and feelings has an changing. Impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Now the ear is also subject to change. Ear arises, it vanishes, and it changes. Ear is impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. We hear the sounds through the ear, whatever there are, pleasant things, unpleasant things, whatever sounds we hear are impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. We become aware about the sounds, that is ear consciousness. Ear consciousness lasts until the sound and the ear last. So the ear consciousness, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Coming together of these three things is called the ear contact. Ear contact too is impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Why is that? Because the contents of the ear contact is also impermanent. So the ear contact, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Now in this time you hear my voice through your ear. You become aware about that. So that is the ear contact. You feel according to the voice. Whatever feelings arises, whether pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, feelings too, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Now bring your focus to your nose. This nose is impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Smells are impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Depending on the nose and the smells, we become aware about that, about the smells. That awareness stay as long as this nose and the smells touches. So the awareness of the nose, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Coming together of these three is nose contact. That is two, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Why is that? Because the contents of the contact is impermanent. Nose changes. Smells changes really fast. So awareness that may arise definitely changes. So the contact is impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Depending on this nose contact, we feel whatever among the smells. We feel happy, sad, neutral. All the feelings whatsoever are dependent. Depending on what? Depending on the contact. So the feelings too, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Why is that? How come the impermanent causes create a permanent feeling? Feelings are impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Now the taste is also the tongue. The tongue sense is also impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Whatever the tastes there are, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. The tongue consciousness arises, the awareness about the taste that arises in the tongue is too impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. The coming together of these three things, the tongue contact too, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Whatever the feelings that may arise dependent on the tongue contact, too, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Now focus to the body. This body is impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. This body is subject to change. This body continuously undergoes the changing because of the aging. This body continuously stricken by the sicknesses. This body is not permanent. This body is subject to change. Impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Whatever the tactile objects that may touch this body are also impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Depending on this too, the awareness of the body about the touch arises. So now this awareness of the body is based on the body and the touch. That body consciousness, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Coming together of these three are called the body contact is impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. The feelings arises dependent on that body contact is too impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Now the mind is also subject to change. The mind has an arising, vanishing, and a change. Sometimes we get angry, sometimes we get love. Sometimes we get appreciation. Sometimes we get sadness. There are so many mental phenomena arising in the mind. That is too impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. The mental objects that come to the mind, such as memories, such as thoughts, mental objects, images, or past memories, whatever the mental objects, those are too impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. The awareness of that too is called the mind consciousness. the mind consciousness lasts as long as the mind and the mental object last. So the mind consciousness, the awareness about the mental objects, 2, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Coming together of these 3 is called the mind contact. That is 2, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Why is that? Because the mind changes, mental objects changes, awareness about the mental objects also changes. So the mind contact, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Whatever the feelings arises dependent on that contact. Whether it is happiness, sadness, or neutral, all the feelings, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. It has an arising, feeling has an vanishing, feeling has a change. Impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. All the 6 senses, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. All the sense objects, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. The awareness, the consciousnesses, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. The 6 contacts, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. The feelings, whether it is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Everything subject to change. Everything undergoes change. All the things impermanent, 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 impermanent. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, friends, now you can open your eyes. Okay. My friends, do you do this impermanent meditation? Do you practice this impermanent meditation? My friends who joined to the other sessions, do you meditate on the impermanence? Please practice this. This can bring you more clarity to your day-to-day life. This will bring you more mindfulness to your life. This can even develop you more confidence and fearlessness. Especially, it is said in the teachings that the person who practices the impermanence can live with patience, can become more patient, and they can tolerate other words and whatever that they go through in their lives, because this develops the true understanding about our experience. A place where it is very difficult to understand in this meditation is when it comes to the mind. And what are the mental objects? And what does that mean by the awareness? So these are difficult words, and depending on our understanding, depending on our study, depending on our perspective, we can define any way, like any other way, like whatever the way that we understand, we normally can say that this is consciousness, this is mind, this is mental object, this is awareness. Buddhism too has its own unique way of explaining about this. Buddha also discovered the true reality of this experience, and especially about the mind and the mental objects and the awareness. To be easy to understand, Buddha normally gives different terms to the experience. Now, in this case, Buddha said that in the meditation, if you remember, that we said the consciousness, but not as a single consciousness, but we said 6 consciousnesses. Do you remember that? He said 6 consciousnesses. Why is it so? Why does the Buddha wanted to say 6 consciousnesses? You know, sometimes, while we were young in the school, we studied, there are 2 consciousnesses. The main consciousness and the subconsciousness. Do you remember? If you're riding a bicycle, the paddling is done by the subconsciousness, while you are leading your way by your eyes when you look at in front and you are going through the road. So consciousness and subconsciousness, there is such a distinction in psychology. Now, Buddhism also has its own way of like explaining that. Now, Buddha said, here the consciousness means the simple way to understand, let's say for now, it is the awareness. Why? Because let's say there is a person without consciousness. Who is that person? Without the consciousness, that person is a dead body. Whatever happened in front of this person won't make sense. Let's say drummers beat and drums and the music, cymbals, and some people singing songs, some are dancing, some people bringing food and saying, eat this, and it's cold outside, but the person won't feel it. I said person because to understand, the body doesn't feel it. So then there is this power of awareness in the consciousness. That's something that we can easily understand. Now what happens in the teachings is that the Buddha said that the consciousness can arise in the senses. Reason why? Because each and every sense has its particular job to do. The eye can see the sights, but can the ear see the sights? No. Can the eyes listen to music? No. Eye can see the sights, ears can listen to the sound, tongue can taste. That's its own job. Sometimes in the Pali term, it is said the ayatana. Ayatana means the factory. It's another word to factory. It's not like, we can say we are being, we are humans, we are beings, we are living beings. But in order to understand, Buddha uses the technical terms, factories, 6 factories. One more thing, in the Buddhist psychology, mind is also seen as a sense organ. But in this conversation, we are studying about the consciousness. Just hold on. Now, the 6 senses has its own particular job to do. That is their own process, its own activity. But are these things mixed together? What do you think? Can the senses mix together? Like just the tongue says to the eye, okay, from today on, I will see the sights, you taste. No, it won't mix together. It has its own job. It has its own activity. It won't mix. Now, the mind, as an organ, it has its own job. Just the same way the eye can see the sights, mind can think up the mental objects. Here, the mental object means whatever the contents of other sense objects. To be easy to understand, let's say we saw something in the daytime, a person, or that we listened to someone who said something to us in the daytime. But at night time, we can think about that. So now this becomes a mental object. So the mental object has the information about the sense experience, the sense objects. So that's why it is called mental object as an umbrella term, because that includes everything in the sense objects. We can easily bring that to our mind. So now that is a mental object. Now there is the mind, there is the mental object. Here we look at the mind as the eye, ear, nose, tongue in this case. Because the mind is like an organ, like a factory. Let's say easy to understand, it's like a factory that it can bring up these objects. Now Buddha says that there is awareness, and the awareness I said in the conversation in the beginning that I said, the consciousness is awareness, awareness is consciousness. Okay? Now something comes in front of you, then you become aware. Let's go back to the eye and the sight thing. Now, when we open the eyes, we see the sights in front of us. But if we were to close our eyes, can we be aware about what we are seeing? Say that we closed our eyes, so there are thousands of sights, but can we be aware? I'm asking about the awareness. No, we can't be aware about the sights because we are missing the eye. So there is no this factory anymore. So maybe, let's say for a born blind person, that person won't see the sights. Now, as soon as the awareness arises, which means in another way, these are like equal terms, when the eye consciousness arises, it will let us know about the sights that we see. Okay? But without the awareness, we won't see it. So now, every moment, the awareness arises when we see the sights. Okay? Same way, ear hears the sounds as long as the awareness do the job. So Buddha said, for the awareness, for the consciousness, there should be an hearing ear and a sound that it listens to. Otherwise, that ear consciousness won't arise. Okay? Why Buddha says the awareness is impermanent is because he says that awareness arises dependent on the internal sense organs and external sense objects. Okay? Now the smells and the nose and the smells brings the nose consciousness. Otherwise, there won't be a nose consciousness, which means there won't be awareness about the smells. Now the tongue tastes the food, tongue consciousness arises. We touch something, the awareness of the body arises. Now, listen carefully. Now there is our mind as the organ to the mental objects. Now Buddha said, the awareness about the mental object arises when there is mind and the mental object. Do you get that? That is why it is called mind consciousness. You become aware about the mental object because of the mind and the mental object. To be easy to understand, let's say in the daytime someone said to us something like, I ate a cheesecake. Now in the night time, when you're going to sleep, you remember, oh, this person said that this person ate a cheesecake in the daytime. Now that is the mental object. But in the moment that you become aware that you remembered about the cheesecake is the mind consciousness, awareness about the mental object. But that's too impermanent. Hard to understand, I know. It's very hard to understand. Now, when the six senses are in a constant flux of change, external sense objects together with that mental object are subject to change, constant flux of change. Buddha said, all the consciousnesses, the awarenesses are dependent and constantly changing. But one thing not to forget is the awareness is awareness. Awareness can let you know. That's the function of it. Awareness can let you know what is in front of you, what came to your mind, what you heard, what you smelled, what you tasted, what you looked at. Otherwise, we are dead. Because of the consciousness, we get to know these two things merges. Sometimes Buddha says the consciousness is like, no, it was said by my teacher, I remember on a book that he says, consciousness is like the bridge that yoke this side with that side. That's the consciousness. So it lets us know. Now, friends, we are going to the exact teaching where the Buddha taught about the consciousness, the quality, the faculty of the consciousness, the quality of the consciousness. It's very interesting. Listen carefully. We have only 10 minutes. We'll try. It's a very short part. It's okay. We'll try to study that. This part is from the Kajaniya Sutta. Let me get the Pali one, so it will be more easier to understand going with the Pali part. So, do you see the screen?
Yes, Bante.
Okay. Now Buddha said this. Kincha bhikkhave vijnanam vadeta. Now in the Buddhist texts, consciousness is vijnana. Vijnanam. In a singular term, Buddha says here vijnanam, which means when it said consciousness, we need to understand, oh, this is talking about the six consciousnesses. Why do you call it consciousness? What is the reason? Vijnanam titiko bhikkhave tasma vijnananti uchati. It cognizes, that's why it is called consciousness. Why is it called consciousness? Because it cognizes. Now let's see what is cognizes means according to this. Kincha vijanati. And what does it cognizes? It cognizes sour, bitter, pungent, sweet, hot, mild, salty, and blonde. What are these things? It cognizes, that's why it is called consciousness. This is where Buddha taught about the consciousness. Very simple. Not to mix with other things. In his perspective, in his understanding, he said, oh, this is the consciousness. What is the consciousness? It cognizes, that's why it is called consciousness. What it cognizes: sour, bitter, pungent, sweet, hot, mild, salty, and blonde. These are, friends, what are these things?
Your tastes.
Those are variations in the taste.
Mm-hmm.
More easier to understand, we can say these are the properties on the taste. Now, when he talks about consciousness, he goes on to say in details about the taste. Why? Why didn't he say just, okay, you get to know the taste because of the consciousness, that's it? No, he said this because that he wanted to let us know that there are these properties, these qualities, these variations in the flavors of the single taste, and the activity of the consciousness is that pulling out all these variations in the taste, which means the consciousness has the power to go into the details of the taste. Why? Because the consciousness is ready to give us a better manufactured goods in the future as a feeling, as a perception, as a decision, as a choice, as an intention. Whatever that comes to the future, the consciousness need to do this work that grab everything from the sense object. That is what is called cognizing. It cognizes. When someone speaks to us, our consciousness can go into all the details to know that what this person is saying to us. So this is the consciousness. It cognizes, that is why it is called consciousness. When you're watching a movie, there are scenes, your eyes are going into all the scenes. It's not your physical eye, but it's not just the movie, but it is the consciousness that brings you up everything in the movie. Now Buddha says this consciousness is always dependent on the two things, that is the eye and the sight. Now let's go to the mind thing. Let's say there is our mind as our mind, like the sense organ. Now the mental objects come to us through our experience. What happens is that the consciousness or the awareness can go in all the details of the mental objects that we are experiencing. Why? Because the consciousness has the power to collect all these information. That is the consciousness. Okay?
Bhante, could it
Yes.
be also called mental analysis? Is it a mental analysis?
No, no. We don't say mental analysis because that is the wisdom part. You can say that can amount to the wisdom. But in this place, wherever that whatever I read, whatever that I listen to, sometimes that I get the information about different perspectives about the consciousnesses, but I'm kind of like very careful to go back to this teaching over and over again to get to know what exactly is the consciousness. That's how I can understand more clearly. The Buddhist teachings are starting with the faith. Faith is a must, and the trust should always be there. So the trust we first lay on the teachings, and we start practicing the meditation up until we experience it as a direct experience. So that's how we won't be a prey to our own consciousness. Because it's so difficult for us to understand without the awakening of the Buddha, awakening of the teacher, awakening of the teacher, which means the teachings that we discuss. Normally, the word that Buddha uses is the vijnana, which means in English translation we can say it is cognition, but without his own definition, it's so hard to grasp this concept when you go through the other teachings in the teachings. You will in the future will study more about the consciousness and other emotions. But before that, we must have this proper understanding about the consciousness, and that has the power to collect all the experiences. Now, sometimes, I did this discussion on our last Sunday online session that is by the Revata Bhante because Bhante was moving. So I conducted it. So my friends asked many questions about this. So I shared that this is the Buddha's teaching. This is how he taught to understand. One day, a person asked me, after I taught about this meditation, so who is the one witness? Who is the one who observed this all the process? Who's the one get to know about that these things are impermanent? It is the mind consciousness. It should be always the mind consciousness that we become aware about the mind object, mental object. If we say that it is the observer, it is the witness that is looking at all those things, we can't be witness about all these experiences without the awareness. And that awareness too is impermanent because that exists as long as the mind and the mental object exists.
So I'm a baby and
Yes,
I haven't had many tastes yet. So
yes,
then I taste all these different varieties in my life.
yes.
So does the consciousness go back to recollect the memories of the taste? And that's why the consciousness recognizes the different tastes. Because if I had never tasted anything and given a word to it, like pungent or sweet or sour,
The
then I wouldn't know.
baby in the baby's own way has a way that baby understands about the tastes, because that person has the conscious power to know about the taste in the details. How can we know whether the baby knows about those tastes or not as an external person that we observe by the physical way? But that babies must also have such a power to know about these tastes. The taste doesn't mean that only exist on a particular food, but taste is always on all the foods. Sometimes in the same food can bring the different variations about the food. Like we eat a food, like let's say curry and rice, we are eating, and at some point we would feel salty, we would feel maybe chili, like hot or bitter. We never know. So we can't even observe this as an external person, external being. But the child can have that conscious power, that the child has that power to know about those properties and those qualities. That's why the first day this child eat the chili, they say we give the chili, but the next moment this person, the child doesn't like to eat the chili. Through the experience, the child got to know some kind of knowledge about the taste. The problem is not the external, how the child, whether the child will gonna be enlightened or not. The problem is that if we can be enlightened or not by understanding this consciousness that we do have.
But
Okay?
the child doesn't have language yet.
Yeah.
So like if the child feels something that's sweet or sour, it makes a face or whatever, but it has to have language in order to identify each of those tastes.
But the child can make the perceptions.
Hmm.
Child can make the feelings. Child has the feelings. Verbal, like the language, means the verbal sankhara, which means the voice for verbal formations.
Hmm.
So the child has verbal formation, otherwise the child won't think. So what we call the language is actually this uh, product of our verbal formations.
Okay.
Sometimes we don't tell a lie, but we text the lie. Let's say we text the lie or we write the lie on the paper, but we don't tell it out from our voice. But that doesn't mean we don't accumulate that bad karma. By just by texting, we are having that verbal karma. Why? Because the verbal formation is not just the language.
Yeah, it could be thinking as well. If
Yeah,
instead of
just hold on.
texting,
Yeah,
yeah,
just hold on. We will go to the feelings. We study the feelings. We will go to the thoughts and the thinking and perception. I don't want to mix all these things together that my new friends won't understand this. So I don't like to make a confusion among them. I would like to go step by step. So if you have the knowledge about this already, please try to understand more deeply and try to get to the concept more freshly. That way, it will give you more understanding. Otherwise, it can make a problem for other listeners because they are starting. So that's why I was very careful when I was teaching about the consciousness.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes,
you,
Trey.
Bhante.
Yeah.
I was wondering, I don't know if this will be in future lessons,
Yeah.
but about perception. Um, and whether, like, say my friend has an ice cream and I have an ice cream and I perceive it as sweet and my friend perceives it as sour.
Yes.
That perception mean impermanence of the consciousness, or
Yes, yes. Because that perception is actually a part of the memory. So we have like underlying conditions to the consciousness, not along the sensory experience, but there are in depth in the sensory experience something called mentality and materiality. So there is these two together that create that experience to us. So that's how one individual feels the ice cream one way and another individual feels it another way. But where we study is actually the power of the consciousness that it can collect all the information of the sense object. So that's where we were studying. But don't worry, I will go in more details about the perceptions and the thoughts and the choices later in the discussion. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Now, please remember, whenever that I say that this is consciousness, you need to understand it has these properties. It has the power to distinguish one by one. It has the power to collect all the information from the sense object, and that is consciousness. Please stay there. When you meditate according to the other knowledges, wherever that you learned about these things. Please do that way. But in this discussion, I will go step by step with my friends. So thank you so much for joining. May you be well and happy. Because we spent too long, so I will let you go. Thank you so much. Sound. By the power of this merit, may we soon able to attain the perfect bliss of your mind. Sound. 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 Thank you so much for joining. You be well and happy.